All right, today we're doing a quick little video on how to replace the lock cylinder on a Honda Civic. Mine happens to be a 92 hatch. The ignition has been having some problems with connectivity, and it's gotten to the point where it just won't start. So I've checked the starter, I've basically diagnosed it down to a faulty ignition switch, so we're gonna replace it here. It's not as simple as you would think. It's only 2 bolts, but there are a few things that you have to do. You actually have to drill out the old bolts in the ignition, so I'm gonna show you how to do that. All right, so here's a brand new lock cylinder. I got this from RockAuto. Came with the keys, new set of keys, and the hardware to install. So there's only 2 bolts holding this in, but as you can see, these are some special bolts. These are shear bolts. So as you torque them down, the entire head will shear off when you get to the correct torque, leaving just the head of the bolt intact, this flat round head. So we're gonna have to drill the old ones out. I'll show you how to do that. One thing to note on these, there is a little sensor here that comes with these. Not all of these come with it. I checked O'Reilly and a couple other places for one that has this little sensor on it. I'm not quite sure what it is. I think it might be the dinger, but I'll have to look that up. But this is the only one I could find that actually comes with this one, so you don't have to reuse the one from your old ignition. You'll be able to tell because the main connector has these 2 little extra wires here from that sensor. Check the pictures. Most of the other ones have just the 2 fat wires instead of the 4 wires. All right, so I've got the steering column removed. I put a blanket down because I just replaced the carpet in this thing and it does require some drilling, so I didn't want to get metal shavings everywhere. Just drop your steering column down. It's really easy to do. Just pull your plastic panel off underneath, pull the metal security panel off, and then there's just 4 bolts that hold your steering column up. There will be these 2 here that go on these studs. And then there's 2 farther back as well. And it's this bracket that you've got to take off. So as you can see, I've already drilled into these bolts. So these bolts were just flat on the top. So I took a center punch, this guy here, just an automatic center punch on the top of each one. And then I drilled in with a 3/16 drill bit. That is what the Haynes manual says to use. So that is what I used. I drilled down maybe halfway through the bolts. You probably don't have to go down that far, but at least get down through the head of the bolt. It helps if you use some cutting fluid like this. I used Tap Magic. I just put a little bit on the end of the drill bit. They're actually not very tight because of that torque, that shear bolt. It prevents them from getting very tight so that you can do just this. You don't have to use excessive force. So all I did was, I've got a pack of speed outs here. I used the number 2 speed out, which happens to work well with a 3/16 bit. So I've got that in my drill here. You can see that that is a speed out number 2. So set your drill to reverse, and I'll show you how easy it is to get these guys out. So drill on reverse, and that bolt will back right out. Just like that. There it is. All right, so as you can see, the bracket falls right out. The ignition just pops right off. So just unhook your wires down at your fuse box. There will be 2 big brown connectors. They look like this. That's one of them. And then, so you'll have these 2. Just unplug, pull that out. We'll install the new one. All right, so we've got old versus new here. This is the old one, this is the new one. As you can see, the old one has this sensor in it, has the 2 wires. that come out to the 7-pin connector. So the new one has the exact same thing. If you buy one of these without the sensor, you're gonna have to swap the old one over to your new ignition if you want the dinger, which is what I'm pretty sure that is. Anyway, you're gonna wanna swap that over. If you don't, you'll have to run the wires through the new sleeve and retape it up and probably pin these yourself, which is a whole nother thing. These are the old bolts here. You can see these similarities, and you can see where the head of the bolt shears off with torque. Kind of makes it a pain, but it actually goes really quick. We will throw the new one back in. We will torque these until they snap off, and we'll be good to go. I'm gonna do a quick little comparison between the old factory ignition and the new one. This is an OEM Honda unit. This is the original unit that came with the car. It is 31 years old at this point. Assuming this was the culprit of my no start, or my intermittent start rather, because of a bad connection inside. So I'll just do a sound test so you can kind of hear what it sounds like. It's a nice click going into the accessory, okay going into on, and then the start position just feels really gummy and sticky. I'm assuming that's where the problem was. And then we'll go to the new one here. Accessory, on, start. So already it just has a way more positive feel to it. Nice clicks in and out. It's not a factory Honda unit. It's not an OEM Honda unit, unfortunately, but I got the best one I could find aftermarket. It's just a race car, so I think that'll be fine for now. We've got the new ignition switch ready to go in. Now we're ready to go. The one thing you want to do when you put this back up in here is make sure that you line up the steering lock with the hole underneath. So you see this little circle. It's kind of a raised circle around the lock itself. That needs to go up into the steering column under here. You can see that circle there in the steering column. That is the seat for this circle here. So just make sure that's lined up and you can feel it click in there before you torque the new bolts down, because once you torque them down, that's it, you're done. So you got to make sure it's aligned correctly. All right, we've got the key in the ignition in the on position to disable that steering lock. Made sure that the lock cylinder is straight. Bolts are hand tightened, so we're gonna go ahead and shear them off here. I'm gonna try to do it with an impact just to make quick work of it here. So these are 8mm head. So we'll just try to shear these off here. Ignition is back in. Now we can lift the steering column back up into place and go from there. So we're gonna test the ignition here with the new key. Right away, we've got the Honda Morse code. Sounds great. That only worked intermittently before. So we'll try accessory power, key on. Everything looks good. There it is. Well, that's it for this video. I appreciate you watching. If you liked it, if it was helpful, give me a thumbs up. Cheers.